Hello there, welcome back to Cheese Kitchen. Today we are going to make one of my favorite noodle soup dishes. It's called Bún Bò Huế. Translated is beef noodle soup. It is a bit spicy. It's a dish that originated from the central region of Vietnam, particularly the city called Huế. So this is a dish that I absolutely love. And I learned to make this from my mother-in-law. And then my husband helped me tweak it so that it is perfectly to his taste. So what I'm going to do is I will show you how to make this dish. It's very easy. It's just that you need the right ingredients to make it work. Because we're missing the right ingredients, basically you can't do it. So what's the hard part is really going to the right Asian market to get all the ingredients you need. Once you have it, it's a piece of cake. Okay? All right, so let's get started. What kind of ingredients do we need for this dish? First, you need some beef that has bones in it so that we can make the soup from it. So what I usually use is called beef shank. Beef shank. I'll show you what that looks like. So you can find beef shank in pretty much most grocery stores, even American grocery stores. Okay, now how much you need depends on how big a pot you're going to make. If you're going to make a pot for 2 people, you probably just need 2 of those pieces. Now if you're going to make a pot for 6, 8, 10, then you'll need to adjust accordingly. You need more beef to make a bigger pot. Next, these other ingredients are optional, but usually they come with this dish. Pork hock is another type of meat you'll need. It looks like this. Pork hock is a tougher type of meat to find in American grocery stores. Some might carry it. You might need to ask the butcher, see if they have some in the back. But if you go to any Asian market, you'll be able to find pork hock. So just to make a dish for 2 people, I would probably use 2 or 3 of these pieces. The more people you want, more pieces. And then another one optional, but it comes with this dish and it makes it really good, is you need beef tendon. Tendon looks like this. So for serving size for just 2 people, I would just use 1 strip of that. If you have more people, obviously adjust and add more tendon. Now the tendon and the pork hock are not necessary, they're optional, okay? Next, you also need some very specific type of rice noodles. It's not the same as the rice noodles that you see for pho or the rice noodles that you see that's called vermicelli noodles or the kind that you eat with like egg rolls, dry noodles. This type of noodles is specific for this dish, it's for Bún Bò Huế. It's called Bún Giang Tây. I'll show you the spelling. Okay, and they usually come in a pack with 4 bundles. Here is 1 bundle. 1 bundle pretty much makes 1 bowl, a good sized bowl. If you don't eat a lot, then it would make maybe a bowl and a half. So this pack that has 4 bundles will easily make a serving for 4 people. Another unique item you'll need is lemongrass. Fresh lemongrass looks like this. They're sold in a bundle, similar to what green onions are, okay? And they're long like this. We will be cutting down this. We're not using the entire stalk, just the upper part. Of course, you'll also need some green onions. For seasoning, you will need some fish sauce. Another unique ingredient that some people don't care for, but it defines this dish. You kind of need it. It's a very pungent spice called shrimp sauce. Some people call it shrimp paste. You can use as much as you want. So you can adjust the recipe if this is too pungent for you. I like it, a lot of it. My husband does, so I do cake on a lot of shrimp sauce, but you can adjust this to your taste. Then you need cayenne pepper. And you'll need some paprika. And then you'll also need a little bit of sugar. Also, you're going to need lots of water. We need a lot of water to boil the noodles, to make the soup, to boil the pork hock and the tendon. So this dish does take a long time because all these things need to be boiled to they're super tender, which means it's hours and hours of boiling on very low heat. Okay, so what kind of equipment do you need? A big pot like this is plenty. That will be where your main soup is. That's what I'm going to use to boil the beef shank. This smaller pot here will be used to boil the pork hock and the tendons. You'll also need a smaller pot to boil the noodles in. And then you need a skillet so that we can saute some of the vegetables and the beef in. All right, so let's get started making Bún Bò Huế. Okay, so let's get started with some preparation work. Remember those green onions? We need to chop them into small bits like this and set them aside. And then we have the lemongrass. I've already chopped them up to, these are probably about 3-inch in length. And I've got here 8-9 stalks. Some of them are thicker than others. So before I throw them into the soup, I'm going to crush them so that the lemongrass flavor comes out. You can see how it flattens out like that? Okay, let's do it to all of them. All right, once they've all been smashed, what I'm going to do is tie a string around them to keep them together before I throw them into the soup. That's what it looks like once it's all tied up. Set that aside. Then what I need to do next is cut down the tendon into smaller bits so they'll cook faster. All right, as you can see, I have a boiling pot here. This is my biggest one. This is the one I'm going to make the soup out of. So I'm going to drop in the lemongrass and then the beef shank. And just let that boil. What you want to do is put the heat in very low heat, as low as you can go. So we want this to become, the meat to become tender. The slower it cooks, the softer and tender it is. If you cook it too quickly, it'll be really tough. Okay, so let's lower the heat. Over here, I have another pot that's boiling, which I'm going to put the pork hock and the tendons in. I'm dropping in the pork hock. Right now I have it on high heat because I want the water to boil quickly. Now that I've dropped in the meat, I'm going to reduce the heat to very low as possible. And the reason is I want the tendon and the pork hock to be tender. The lower the heat, the longer time it's going to take to cook. It's going to take like 2 or 3 hours or so. It'll be really tender. Otherwise, it'll get very hard and chewy, hard to eat. Here I have another pot, a smaller saucepan that I'm going to use to boil the noodles. So I'm going to add a little bit of oil to this boiling water. That will prevent the noodles from sticking when they're cooked. As you can see, my noodles are boiling. This is the type of noodle that's very fragile, it's finicky, so you do not want to stir the pot or agitate the noodles in any way. Just let it sit and let it cook. Every once in a while I might poke at it just to see if it's done yet. Otherwise, I'm just going to leave it alone. So I'm checking in the noodles now to see if they're ready. I'm just going to poke it a little bit without stirring very much. The noodles are not ready yet, they're still hard. Let me show you how I can tell. When I just bring up a little, you see how they still stick up? They're kind of stiff looking. If they were fully cooked, they would be droopy. This is not quite droopy yet. Okay, here's our next test to see if the noodles are ready. I call it the fingernail pinch test. I'm pinching it right here, and I'm unable to cut it with my fingernail. It's still too tough. Let's let it cook some more. Here's another test that you can do. When you pinch off the noodles with your fingernail and it comes off, which is great, but then just because it comes off, it might not be fully cooked yet. I would just chew it. Throw it in your mouth and chew it, and if it's still too chewy, hard, it's not ready. So your mouth is your final test. If it's soft and just right when you chew it, it's ready. Okay, let's take a look. All right, the noodles passed the test. So here's my strainer. I'm dumping in the noodles. Pour in some cold water right away. And I just kind of jostle the noodles around to get the cold water through all of the noodles. All right, our noodles are perfectly done. Here we probably have about to make two large bowls or 3 small bowls. I actually use 2 bundles of noodles when I boil them. This is the beef shank that's been boiling. They actually look cooked. And they don't need to be cooked completely because we're going to remove them soon to slice them up. What I want to point out though, you see these little soapy suds that are floating up to the top of the pot? What you want to do is skim them out. So I'm taking a large ladle here and I'm just going to skim out those little bubbles. They kind of make your soup murky, dirty. So you want your soup to be clear, not murky with these brown little suds. You will need to do that periodically. The tendon and the pork, they're boiling in a different pot. They're not going into our soup. So we don't care. All the suds, soapy things that are floating up, you can scoop them out so you can see how they're doing. But otherwise, we don't care because that water is not going to become part of our soup. Okay? Take out these beef shank. Okay, after my beef shank has been cooling for a little bit, so now it's safe to touch them, I'm going to cut out the bones. Okay, so now I'm just going to drop these bones back into the pot of soup to let it cook the soup some more. So now what we do with the beef is we slice them into thin slices. When I say thin, not too thin, probably about 1/8 of an inch thick. Here's what I mean by about 1/8 of an inch thick. We're going to saute the beef with the green onions and spices. All right, so I have a hot skillet on the stove here. I'm pouring some oil. And I wait for the oil to heat up. Okay, I'm gonna test to see if the oil is ready. I think it is. And I put my chopstick in. I see it sizzling. It's ready. Push the green onions back and forth. We're going to add a little bit of cayenne and paprika. The paprika is really there for color, not really for taste. We really want the taste to come from the cayenne. That's where the spiciness comes from. So I just push everything back, a little back and forth. We want the cayenne to interact with the oil. As you can see, the aroma's coming up. It's gonna make you kind of choke and cough a little bit. That means it's working. I'm going to sprinkle, again, some paprika for color. And then some cayenne pepper. Be careful with the cayenne, it is spicy. I'm gonna add a teeny bit of salt. And then I'm gonna add in some fish sauce. And finally, some sugar. And just kind of push everything back and forth. Now I'm gonna add the pork hock. Now, I want you to note that the pork hock is cooked, but it's not completely tender yet. And so this is a good time to take it out because I don't want it to be all soft yet. I'm going to add paprika, cayenne, fish sauce, and then just kind of push back and forth with the beef. Okay, everything is well blended now. So basically, I'm just going to dump all this back into the soup. Okay, So I'm going to prepare my soup by adding the shrimp paste. So I have here a bowl with a little bit of water, and I'm going to scoop out some shrimp paste. Now this is more than a tablespoon. The recipe asks for 1 tablespoon. My family likes a lot of it, so I'm using way more than that. So what I'm doing is I'm going to dissolve the shrimp paste into the water. Know that the more shrimp paste you use, the saltier the soup will be. So you'll have to adjust with the seasoning later. Okay, so if you use less shrimp paste, then you can season more with fish sauce. As you can see, it turned the water brown. I just want to make sure everything is dissolved, and then I dump everything into the soup. All right, as you can see, once we dump the pork and the beef into the soup, it turns the soup to have a little red film. This red film that you see here is from the cayenne pepper and the paprika. Here's the fish sauce, sugar. So you're going to have to taste the soup to see if it's just right. If it's too salty, you can adjust it by adding some more sugar, a little bit more water. If it's not salty enough, you can always add fish sauce a little bit at a time, or even salt. So right now, the beef and the pork hock are very tough still. They're cooked, but they're very tough and chewy. They're gonna need to simmer in this soup in very, very low heat, probably for another hour at least, maybe an hour and a half, before they'll be soft enough to eat. Now do watch it now and then, because the water will evaporate and it will go down. The water level will go down, and so you're losing soup. So every now and then, you might need to add a little bit of water, like maybe a cup, and then adjust the seasoning again. Maybe you need to add more fish sauce, sugar, or whatnot. Okay, so just kind of watch the water level. Also, don't forget to check on your tendons that's been boiling in the other pot. Now, right now, it's been boiling probably about a little over an hour or so. It is rock hard right now. Usually, it seems like it takes about 3 hours for it to cook through. Your test is to take a fork and pierce the tendon. If your fork just goes right through easily like butter, it's done. You're trying to push the fork through and it won't go through, it's not ready. Just be patient. It's going to take a long time. All right, the tendons are now tender. So I removed them from the boiling water, let them cool for a little bit. Now I'm ready to slice them up. This is how they come out in big chunks like this. I want to slice them into bite size. All right, everything is ready to be plated. First, the bowl. Then we put in the noodles. Now let's put in the tendons. Let's add in a slice of pork hock and some beef. Next comes the soup. Now we top it off with some fresh herbs. Here are what I usually have on hand. Some bean sprouts, sliced yellow onions, some cilantros. One key herb that I don't have here is Vietnamese coriander. Zao zam. I'm missing that. That's a key one. So let's top it into our bowl. There you have it. You just learned how to make Bún Bò Huế, an authentic Central Vietnamese dish. Try it out with your family. I hope you like it. Bon appétit. Come back to Chi's Kitchen next time for a different dish.